Hello, hello. Welcome. You are tuning in to Sis Let's Talk Leadership, and I am Christy Burns.
And I'm Melissa Walsh.
And this is where we unmask the myths.
And we own the journey.
Right. So today we have a special guest, actually our first guest, Miss Joyce Baker. And so we're super excited to have her here. Melissa, you want to go ahead and kind of start the
I would
convo?
love to.
Yeah.
I would love to. Joyce Baker, it is only fitting that many, many moons ago, you made me one of the first in a group that we now make you our first guest in this amazing podcast. And we're so excited to have you here. But you do so many great things, and I think two things I want to highlight that you're currently actively engaged in is one being our NBRC president, which
Yeah.
is amazing, and we love that. We love how engaged you are with that, and I love seeing your face everywhere, and I feel like you've come from a trajectory of a lot of amazing women leaders that are currently working in that avenue, which is awesome. But you are also one of a program coordinator for two different paths over at a very amazing children's hospital. And, with all that being said, one of the topics that we have picked to talk about today is why professional growth is not always a promotion.
Yeah.
And I feel like you just have such an extensive and unique background and all the amazing things you've done. But can you do a quick little intro, so kind of about yourself and what you do and how you found respiratory therapy?
Well, first of all, I want to thank both Melissa and Christy for having me as the first guest. Wow, I'm honored, and I also think this podcast is well needed, and I think it's just going to be amazing, especially as more and more people get a hold of it and know what's out there.
Yeah.
So I'll start with how I ended up in respiratory, and probably is very similar to a lot of people. It was by accident. So many times when I talk to respiratory therapists, I hear that they were going to go to nursing school, they were going to do something else, and the program was full. So same thing for me, but actually I was going to be a physical therapist. And so when I went to the school and was going to enroll in the physical therapy program, they're like, oh, that program's full, but we have respiratory therapy. And unfortunately, respiratory isn't very well known. And in my mind, I'm like, physical therapy, respiratory therapy, it can't be that much different. And so I got put into respiratory therapy. And I'll just say that I think sometimes our we get put into a place that we're destined to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, 30 some years later, I'm still in the profession and proud to be in the profession and representing it as the president of the NBRC and being able to advocate for respiratory therapists, not only locally, but nationally.
Mm.
Do you want me to expand a little more, or is that kind of...
I would know.
I was about
Please
to
go
say,
ahead and
please
share.
tell us,
Yeah.
tell us it all,
Well,
please.
when I was thinking about it, here's what I'll say is, so I started out as an equipment tech, a respiratory equipment tech, right? So
Oh,
kind of when you
wow.
think about career progression, so respiratory therapy, equipment tech, then went to the bedside, and that's been neonatal all the way through adults. I was lucky, and I'm sure this question's going to come back full circle, right, on that it isn't always leadership. So yes, I've been in leadership. I've been a supervisor. And then I was also a director for a very large respiratory department that had 5 inpatients, 10 outpatient locations, and 10 emergency department urgent cares. But then I've also helped stand up an ECMO program. I've done transport. I've done research. I've published. I've written a chapter in a textbook. I serve on the AARC for different working committees. And I feel like there's so much more that I could go on to. But my career path, really where I've gone is like I've gone different avenues.
Yeah, yeah. So you have done a lot, and I think that speaks volumes for who you are as a person, and what you bring to the table when it comes to respiratory. 30 years is a very long time, and that's amazing. So when you hear the phrase professional growth, what comes to mind for you on a personal level with the experience that you have?
So what I would say is professional growth, I think, means different things to different people. And
Right.
for me, it now also depends on different points in your career. So maybe when I was a new grad, professional growth might have been getting into the ICUs, right?
Hmm.
Just as Melissa had alluded to, talking about, well, we had talked offline about kind of our relationship, working relationship.
Yeah.
But then I would say when you go into leadership, your professional growth is going to be something different. And then I would say now, I think it's following your passion. So if I had to say a one liner, it's professional growth should be what your passion is.
Mhm.
And then the other thing I'm going to say, which I recently presented at the chess conference talking to
Mhm.
RT students,
Yeah,
don't stop learning. Because
that's
just
right.
because you get out of school or you're working at the bedside, it doesn't stop there. Every day we should be learning something new and continuing to grow. Healthcare is changing. And
That's
if we
right.
don't stay with it, we're going to be left behind.
The moment that you stop growing is the moment that you stop leading. So it's
Exactly.
really, amazing that you say that you should follow your passion. And you mentioned earlier that you feel like you were destined to be where you are right now. And I think that makes a difference as well because passion always leads to purpose. So that's amazing to connect the two in that way. What were you going to say, Melissa?
I was gonna ask Joyce if she and I would be surprised if you haven't. Have you read the book Who Moved My Cheese?
I have.
So
Uh-huh.
that's what it made me think of when you were talking about your goals evolving over time,
Mhm.
right? And when we talk about, how do you stay relevant? How do you stay ahead of it? Like, and I think a lot of people may not necessarily know, like, for example, I didn't start thinking, I'm going to go to leadership.
Yeah.
I started just as you said, like, "Oh my gosh," and originally, oddly enough, I was like, "I wanna go to the NICU, that's where I'm gonna live, that's, like, gonna be
Mhm.
my place," and
The little
then
babies are so cute. That's where I want to
yes,
stay.
seriously, I'm gonna suction them, but destiny would have it that at the time, that wasn't the need at the
Yeah.
organization I was at, and destiny would have it that I ended up at the PICU, and then that's kind of how I met Monty. It was working there, and then you help kind of make that connection, and I know that we have a very unique story, you and I, but have you ever really thought about, 30 years of experience, like Christy said, is a lot. The level of impact you have made in that amount of time?
That timing. Oof.
Honestly, I haven't. I think when you're asking that question, Melissa, it does
Yeah.
make me pause. Like, I think if I was to take a step back, so I'll be honest, I wrote out kind of my 30 years because sometimes you forget what you did 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I thought about all that I had done, but I not once thought about the level of impact. So that's a really interesting question.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think thinking about it now and knowing, because I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna go to the feelings place because something that is so underrated is and people say it and they think it's so corny, like, "Oh, people will forget what you do for them, but they'll never forget the way they made you
You hear
feel."
that a lot,
And I
yeah.
can think of a very unique situation that both you and I were involved in, and it involved a phone call and a report exchange, and something had happened, and there was a miscommunication, and I had reached out to you, and I was like, "Hey, sorry to bother you, but I just wanna let you know that this happened, and I don't think that that was right, and then you had actually gotten another phone call that said the complete opposite, and in that particular situation, something I carried from it and I apply every single day up until even today was there's 2 sides to every story, and
Mhm.
having and running as a leader, running with a unilateral thought or a unilateral story will cause breakdown in trust,
It
which
does.
was a great conversation that we had with Christy, but also break you down from a sense of resiliency as a leader.
Mhm.
When we talk about, professional growth and promotion, can you share with Christy and I a little bit more about how building trusting relationships carried you through a 30-year span plus of a career?
Yeah. Can I go back to your comment earlier just a second about
You can go wherever
leadership
you'd like.
and 2 sides to every story? Because
Mhm.
I would say that's even beyond just leadership. I think it's in your day-to-day, and whether it's taking care of patients and a physician assesses this way, a nurse assesses that way, right? And then there's kind of that middle ground. I also think, when you're interfacing with people on just a personal level, right? There's going to be conflict, and conflict can be good and you can grow from it. Great ideas can be generated from it, or it can be destructive. And so I think when you're just thinking about resiliency and you talk about that, and just what you're saying, Melissa, is that I think hearing both sides of the story, the one thing I've learned over the years, and I had to learn the hard way, is there are two sides to the story, and a lot of times the truth may be in the middle, and
Right.
it's people's perceptions. And it doesn't mean that they're wrong. It's just their perceptions. They come from different places.
Mhm.
But if you don't get both sides of the story and you navigate to one way or the other, back to your question, that could damage credibility,
Mhm.
right? So just kind of what you're mentioning, if you took the one side and one word and headed down that path, it may not have been the complete truth. And then now as an individual or leader, you've just lost trust and credibility with maybe other people involved. Right. So I
Mhm.
think getting two sides on any situation, whether it's a personal or professional disagreement, is like what I like to call it. And I think so when going back to your question about, impact, I think integrity, humility,
Mhm.
and honesty is really what drives, right? Whether you're at the bedside and you own that you made an error,
Mm. Yeah.
or that
Yes.
maybe you said something that hurt somebody's feelings and you didn't even know
Yeah.
it hurt their feelings until it came back full circle and you realized that you hurt their feelings,
Yeah.
right? And you and Melissa, you and I have had times in our working careers together where there's been miscommunication that we didn't necessarily either get the same information or had different perspectives, and neither one was,
Mhm.
right or wrong, or somebody fed us different information depending on the
Yeah.
timing.
Mhm.
That I think those are crucial. Like I live by integrity, honesty, and humility. Because if you don't have that as an individual in
Yeah.
general, I think I shouldn't say you don't have it, but I think that's what drives trust,
Yeah.
Yeah.
respect,
I
credibility.
say that all the time when it comes to trust. One of the, I guess you can call it an analogy, when it comes to trust is it's built in drops, but it's lost in buckets. So you can work this entire time to build trust with your teams or individuals,
Mhm.
personal and professionally, and you do one thing that you may have had good intentions, but that wasn't the other person's reality. And then take the whole bucket and throw it out. It's like you never did anything, and then you have to start off from
Mhm.
scratch and do it again. But I like the fact that you said, which is actually one of the cultural beliefs at the facility that I'm at right now, and owning it makes you hold yourself accountable as a leader, which in turn models that, and then your team follows suit. So it's super important. And it's crazy because I just had a situation today where respiratory care week just ended last week, right? And we had different committees that were planning different activities. We had, the education team doing superlatives and we had games. We had everything that you could think of. And one of the supervisors had planned a night for us to actually go out in the community to like have dinner. We had dinner, and I sent out an email at the end of Respiratory Care Week, and I said, "Thank you for your participation. Like, I mean, the momentum was great. This has been one of the best according to you all, this has been one of the best respiratory care weeks up to date, even for people who had been there for 30 and 45 years." So I had good intentions with thanking the team, but then when I got to work today, one of the supervisors came to me and he said, "You forgot to mention the dinner." And I said, "Well, what do you mean, the dinner?" And I was like he was like, "You forgot to mention the dinner that we had. Like, you said thank you to all the committees and you forgot the dinner." And I said, "My goodness, I am so sorry." Like, I had good intentions with thanking the team, but that one little thing he brought to my
Mhm.
attention, and I apologized, on the spot, and I owned it, and I said that I'm sorry, and I said, "Don't worry, I'll make it up to you." And he was like, "Oh, no, no, I was joking." And I'm like, "No, you're not, and it's okay." Like, I want us to be able to have that relationship to where you can speak up and you can say, because it goes both ways when it comes to leadership, and he's a leader as well, but I want you to feel comfortable enough to be able to come and tell me those things. So the fact that you told me, thank you, and I appreciate that, but that wasn't my intent. So
Mhm.
owning it kinda allowed us to, smooth it over in a sense, but now I know that I'll be more intentional, even more intentional with my intents when I'm sending out emails or thanking individuals or things of that nature. So it's just an example that I thought of that literally happened today.
Well, I think
So
it's interesting. That's a perfect example of learning never stops, right? As long as you take a step back and you reflect on the situation and you choose to grow from it, that's how we all grow as individuals. And yeah. So just even really, there's opportunity day to day for us to
it
all
really
grow.
is. Being
So,
self-aware and emotionally regulated, I think is where it comes from. So like you said, taking that step back, taking a pause and responding differently or reacting differently or doing things differently just in general with whatever that looks like for you. So that makes sense. Perfect
And a
sense.
high level of emotional intelligence to even recognize how
Mhm.
important it was to that person or even to be able to read the room or, whatever, right? You could be talking about something, read the room, be like, "Oh,
Mhm.
I gotta do a course correction," and maybe use different words or whatever. And yeah, it's going back to that humility. So kudos to you for being receptive to that.
Well, thank you. So moving forward, more intent, more intent. So
Right.
I have another question that kind of goes right along with what we're referring to here, but are you able to share a moment, Joyce, with Melissa and I, where in your career you grew, but it didn't necessarily come with a title change? It just happened, but you weren't where you
Has
thought
that
you wanted to
too.
be. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say even, a lot of times when you're eager to want to make a difference in patients' lives or even in an organization, right? Just getting involved in a committee, right? It's not a title change or even creating your own committee. So I can think of a time where I just thought that there was a lot of opportunity around a certain therapy that we could have done better. And
Mhm.
so I'll give an example of high flow,
Mhm.
oxygen, right? Again, dating myself 15 years ago,
Mhm.
it came in. And so when originally it was brought forward, the approach is, we don't need to do that. Things are fine. What we have is working, right? The status quo, we don't want to change. And so being able to say, what if I pulled a group together and we kind of evaluated the equipment and then went back and kind of presented the pros and cons to
Mhm.
considering this particular equipment. And so again, identifying an opportunity, being passionate about it, and
Mhm.
willing to step out on a limb. And there was no title change, there was nothing, there was no bonus, nothing, right?
Mhm.
It was just I saw an opportunity to improve care
Right.
and being able to go out and, advocate for that and then request approval to be able to pull a committee together and then come back and present the argument of, both in favor and against
Yeah.
doing something different.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that goes I think this kinda ties into that as well. I was just thinking as you were saying that, like, not letting a title or a company or whomever define who you are and who you're aspiring to be. So, whatever you don't see, be the initiator behind it, and it can come from a drive of whatever that passion is. And so, you're right. That's really
I
good.
think your volunteer work too speaks a lot to that. Like you've done so much with NBRC. I know you were very involved with CHA at one point too, and even with the AARC, and none of that came with a title. Like you never did it for that.
Yeah.
But I think volunteer work is such a great way to professionally grow and gain skills that you would otherwise not develop just situationally where we may work we may not have the ability to do those things but even going back to you shared that you wrote a chapter in a textbook. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
that is.
But that's not something that you did for a title, you did it to contribute to an outpouring of education and knowledge sharing to students and clinicians alike, because clinicians also use those textbooks and even, what you have helped. I actually quoted you recently. Well, I cited you, excuse me, I cited
Cited
you.
me.
I
I
cited
think you've
you.
also quoted me a few times too, because you always come back and say, I said this because you told me
That's
that.
true.
She said,
It's
"Joyce told me
true.
this." I said, "Hey, run with it. That sounds great. Thank you for letting
Yeah.
me know."
Yeah, but I think you have done a lot of things. Can you how did you get involved with volunteer work? Like, how did that start out for you?
So I think there's 2 arms, right? When I think about volunteer work, because there's the volunteer work through the Children's Hospital Association or respiratory, like the organization, right? But then there's a lot of volunteer work I've done. So, and I know Melissa, you know this, but like I've done, 7 or 9 medical missions internationally.
Mm,
To me, again, I'll just say passion has driven everything I've ever done. I really believe that. I mean, there's been some opportunities where you're like, it came forward and you would have never thought, like, so being president of the NBRC, I would have never have imagined, if you had asked myself coming out of high school and respiratory school that someday you'd be the president of the NBRC, I'd be like, yeah, whatever, no way,
Yeah.
or different, like huge, like big or little accomplishments, right, that we've all made along the way.
Mhm.
But passion's driven a lot of it, and so just finding the right avenue. Sometimes it's and I'm sure you all have, talked about this. Sometimes it's who you know and those
Yeah.
relationships that you build, and then so I always tell people a lot of it. It's 50% of who you know, and then it's 50% of who you are. So
Okay.
people can kinda
Mm,
connect you to wherever, but it
mm,
still requires who you are, your knowledge, your passion, your drive that's gonna
right.
get you there.
That's good.
So I know that's general, Melissa, but I would say it's my passion that
No,
drives me
That's
to do
deep.
the things.
And
it's
I
it's
think
not
too,
general.
it goes along with what you're saying is being humble in the process and realizing that, we're all human. There's room for mistakes as long as like what you told me earlier is that you need to own it and be able to look back at that and say, "Hey, I can make a change and I can do something different or maybe I could have handled that differently."
Absolutely.
Do either one of you ever feel like there was a time where you felt like you were being led to do something and you weren't really obedient to that calling, or you feel like you ran? Because I definitely know that I have ran from some things and then they just come back again, full circle. So do either one of you all have you all experienced that?
Melissa, you were nodding your head.
Yes. But mine is not really in on a professional level, like more on a personal level when we talk about, our purpose in life because our life, expands so much further out than our professional
Yeah, it
life.
does.
So when a lot of people like ask me about that, I think my answer to that will lean more towards my faith, where I know that, there are certain experiences in life that I have had that have built me to help a very unique community.
Mhm.
And it's something that it's still things that I have to work through and heal. And I always use that. That's my excuse, right? Like, I have to work through that. I have to make sure that I get my ducks in a row before I go tell somebody else, put your duck here and align this right. Every time it comes up, and every time something happens, I sit there and, it's just one of those pulls, and I think, Christy, you had talked about this in one of our I think it was our first episode of sometimes you feel this pull to do
Yeah.
something, and then you don't go do it,
Yeah.
and then it really gets in your face, and I something that people have learned about me over time,
Mhm.
my love language is touch. So, if I hug you, it means a lot. I don't hug everybody. I'm not a hugger, but it's because that's my love language. It's very personal. It's very intimate to me. So a lot of times they'll feel like, "Oh, this person really needs a hug." And I'm like, "I don't want to hug that person. I really don't. They don't need a hug from somebody else, but not me. Not from me." And I'll go over there and I'm just like, "Ah." So then I like you feel it. You feel it very deeply. Then I go and hug them. They start breaking down crying. Or a different time that it's happened to me, it's been like, you feel it in your heart, just go check on this person, and all you say is, "Hey, how are you?" And it's like the floodgates open, and, there's a lot of things, and Joyce is very well aware of my faith and something that we do. Joyce shared with me a while back that there was this book, and it's called A Leadership Handbook.
Okay.
And it connects a lot of leadership traits back to uh, our faith and things like that, and how we make those connections. And for a period of time, we were exchanging text messages, kind of talking about our takeaways
Mhm.
from that particular topic that was discussed, how it's connected, what it means to us, how to apply that to our everyday living. And I'm glad she did that because as back to Joyce's point, as you're growing, as you are evolving, as your goals are changing, and, to reiterate that these concepts are not basic. They
Mhm.
are a foundation. And that's why that they seem basic, but there are ABCs, right? Our one, two, threes. And I think, Christy, you had said something about like, you start out small and you build up.
Mm.
You start out learning very small things and you build from that, but you always come back to the basics for things, right? Trust, healthy conflict, integrity, who you are. all those things. So I do often feel that there are things where, and it's more kind of for my community and things that I do on a personal level and how I serve in my faith and things like that. Professionally, I feel like I'm a lot more bold and I
Mhm.
take a lot more kind of like those risks to go after it. But I think personally, I'm a lot more reserved. That's just my story.
Yeah. I think in my earlier years, because I feel like I started out young in leadership and didn't even really realize that until kind of things kept coming back around. But people saw more potential in me than I saw in myself. And so now as a leader, I do have that affirming statement that is one of not, like I say, cockiness, but it's just that I used to lead from a place of proving myself and now I lead from a place of knowing who I am. And that's because over the years and through this journey, it's been, I'm not gonna let anyone believe in me more than I believe in myself. And so that has
Yes.
kinda helped me from that running away mentality of, if it's something that the Lord is calling me to, if he's calling me to it, he's going to see me through it. So he's relying on me to trust him through the process. And so I have to be more intentional about hearing him, listening to him, and actually doing it, being obedient in what it is. And yes, it's gonna come with challenges, but I try to stick to the scripture of, the weapon's going to form, but he said it's not gonna prosper. So I try to, do that. But it took intentionality behind doing that because that is something that I've definitely grown from. That's not how I used to be.
I think too, it's having your mind open to that. It
Yeah.
seems like we all kind of have very much strong faith
Mhm.
and, trusting in that. I would say I'll say my experience that comes to mind is actually later in my career where, and Melissa kind of knows the situation
Mhm.
where there's just a lot of tension within a small team. And so like for me, like I'm a driver, so that means I go get things done and I move on to the next thing, which
Right.
sometimes can make people feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, I have this side where people are important to me. And for me, there was a lot of, I think, conflict within our team. Unintentional. I think it was just people had different perspectives, different priorities. And I started becoming somebody that I was, meaning
Mhm.
that I was more withdrawn,
Mm.
wasn't maybe quite being as much of a go-getter as I was before. And I had gone on vacation, and during that time, I prayed, because I'm like, I didn't like who I was becoming. I didn't feel like it was building me up as a person or professionally. And I didn't like the feeling that we were all having, working together. Um, and, basically through prayer, I was guided back to don't be true to yourself. And Melissa's heard me say this time and time again. But you know
Mhm.
what I learned during that is be true to yourself. And then just going back to that two sides to every story, if it's important to you, sitting down and talking it out as a group or as an individual, and then coming up with that. But I think, for me, it was a big eye opener later in my career that I was moving away from who I was and what was my passion and commitment. And
Mhm.
then I didn't like who I was, not as a person, but just who I was at work. And God had plans.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't, if you continue down this path, this isn't really going to help me accomplish what I want you to do,
Yeah.
according to my plans. So
Well, Imma tell you something, if I don't get anything else from this, I got that you said that you need to stay true to yourself no matter what, and the 2 sides to every story, so that's amazing.
No, I think I was just gonna echo on kind of what Joyce said, but connect it back to the statement you made about, how we do go through all these changes and we do all these things and impact and all those things.
Mhm,
And, I don't know how to adequately like put into words what it means to have someone believe in you.
mm,
And Joyce will be the first one to tell you, it was never that I was lacking a voice. It was never that I never spoke up or I didn't have an idea or I didn't jump at the opportunities.
yeah,
But it really does take a very special person to truly see your heart and your intent.
mhm,
And I can recall back to like the very beginnings of my career, and Joyce really did pause, and her passion, I think, is the one thing that kind of connected us
mhm,
because I think she saw my drive to wanna do so much,
mhm,
and she's like, "Alright, well, this is what I can facilitate. These are the doors that I can help you open. These are the connections that I can help you open." And I think Joyce has seen me, I think, at my best and at some of the worst situations of my life professionally and
Mhm.
even personally. I can't thank her enough because I think that if she hadn't brought the new grad program to
Yeah.
the organization I was at, if she hadn't given me a chance, if she hadn't given that group at that moment a chance, that program has evolved to be so much greater than I think, Joyce, you ever thought it would be.
Mhm.
And it was such a unique moment for me when it came to where we were revamping it. And,
Mhm.
you know, they filmed that video and they did all these things. But that's something I'll always carry very close to my heart. And even when, you know, I'm like, man, this is what I'm going through. And I'm not sure if I'm handling it the best way. I'm not sure what else to consider, what perspective to think of. And you have always been a text message away, a phone call away. Like, it has never been a knock on the door that you don't answer that door,
Mhm.
and that means the world to me because I think that's what young and up and coming leaders need,
We def
right? They need someone who has been there, who has walked that path, who has done the journey,
Yeah.
who has had the healthy conflict and has made it on the other side of that fire to
Right.
say, "I'm on the other side.
Mhm.
Walk through it. It's
Yeah.
gonna hurt.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough. Walk through it.
Mhm.
And when you get here, I'll be here, but
Mhm.
come on, you got this." And I hope you know that. And that's why I asked the question about impact because I'm not, we talk about this and I say these things to you, and a lot of the time you're like, "Oh, stop," you know, but I mean it. And I'm very grateful for it. I'm grateful for the decisions that you made many years ago. And I'm grateful for the way that you have continued to pour into me and pour into our relationship because I do really much admire what you do and how you handle yourself and how you have overcome some really tough situations where I think other people would have bent and you did not. You stood firm on
Yes.
who you were and you let yourself shine. And I'll never forget the day you yelled at me in the office, "You're just a yellow. You're a yellow, Melissa." You kept calling me yellow.
She's thinking, what the heck does that mean? Yellow? What do you mean yellow?
She'll tell you.
I'm a red, you're a yellow.
We were having a great conversation. She's like, "You're just a yellow." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What's a yellow?"
Yeah. No, that's amazing to hear you all's relationship and how she has impacted you, not even realizing that the decisions she made would impact you the way that they have. And that
Mhm,
just goes to show that passion always leads to purpose. The Lord is always going to send you someone, whether it is you and I, whether it's you and Joyce. And I'm just going off of the relationships here, but he will always send you someone no matter what path you are on, no matter what journey you're on, no matter what season you're in. He's going to always send you someone, and you will know because they will go through the fire with you. And I think that we spoke on that one time before that, the Lord usually and always will. I don't know why I said usually, but he jumps in the fire with you. So you're going to have those challenges, but he's in the fire with you and he's waiting on you to come to the other side, to pull you through, to let hey, you got this, you got this, you got this, but you got to lean on me and
mhm.
people in the physical realm, which what Joyce was for you. And so that's extremely, amazing, and I'm pretty sure that now if she's been that impactful to you, there is no telling who else feels the exact same for,
Mhm.
what she has done, the
They're
choices
just
that she
not a
has made.
yellow.
Yeah.
Yes. You're gonna have to tell Christy what
I'm
that
not
means
a
now.
yellow.
Definitely want to know what that means,
You
but,
guys need to do a podcast on the all the color personalities.
okay, that
That would
works.
be fun.
That would definitely be fun, yes.
The one some first of all, Melissa, that means so much to me because I had, like you've shared, and yes, I will admit, this is me being humble. I'm not good at taking compliments or, it's like, oh, it's like that. Of course, like I'm going to support you. But I will also say in general for everybody, it's a bidirectional relationship, right? Because I would say I've learned from you and there's been times that you've given me pointers, right? And maybe I've been like, okay, you're right. Maybe I need to do this or approach it differently. Or, even just, what stepping back and watching you grow in your profession, right? Think of where you were. Would you have said you're where you are today if you looked at your new grad self? Right. Right.
I was supposed to be in the NICU.
Right. Feed those little babies. They're
I
just
need
so
you alone,
cute.
right? Yeah.
But I would say, one thing is also, that when you build lasting relationships, and I'm going to add this also, female, women, relationships. I have been blessed in that we call ourselves the FARC babes.
Mhm.
And but
I love it.
it's women who I have come in contact over the years of my career who build me up and who see my opportunities, or just like you were saying, Christy, right? Somebody believed in you and saw who you were and what like where you could go.
Yeah,
And surrounding as women, it's important that we surround ourselves with other women who are going to build us up and
right.
support us. And they're not going to be the ones that are talking behind your back, like saying something positive to you, but then turning around and tearing you down behind your back. But I think it's important when we talk about women leadership is finding those women and surrounding yourself with those women to build you up, empower you, and see the best opportunity that you can be.
I agree. Melissa, what did I send you? Was that today or was that yesterday? What did I send
We
you?
send each other a lot of stuff. Which would you like me to share?
So
How
I'm a
much we love each
fan.
other.
So I'm a fan of women who, and it read. I'm gonna read it. It's not
That
gonna
was
take long.
today.
That was today. Okay. So it says, I'm a fan of women who lift each other's crowns, empower one another, celebrate victories together. And I'm gonna try not to get emotional. Inspire without competition, support each other's growth,
Mhm.
avoid hurtful comments,
Mm.
spread kindness and positivity, build each other up, never tear each other down, nurture sisterhood and camaraderie, stand united against negativity, amplify each other's voices, create a supportive community, honor each other's uniqueness, and lead with empathy and compassion. Sorry, y'all. Champion each other's success and uplift and inspire without reservation. So it's crazy that you state that because I literally just sent her that this morning. So yeah.
But Joyce shared that with me a couple of
Mhm.
years ago. She
Yeah.
told me, I think we were at an NBRC dinner,
Mhm.
and you had said to me, "This is where you need to find your women group." And it took a couple of years, Christy, to find you, girl. You hide real
I
well.
know,
You
right?
were hiding away from this calling for a long time, and I had to hunt you down.
You
I
did.
went
You
to so
hunted
many
me.
conferences to try to find you.
Yeah.
Stalking
You
you
know,
almost.
I
Almost, but it's
really
okay.
did.
Here we are.
I
Here we
really
are.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's
it
amazing.
is really beautiful and it is really uplifting. And I love that that is something that you leave us with and continue to reinforce in us and continues to reinforce us to, continue to build this podcast and continue to reach out to, I think, a lot of females just like us, kind of really just talking about the real things that we all deal with and talking about how together, united, we can lift each other up during those really hard times and
Yeah,
forge forward, continue to move forward and not give up. And it's a lot of I cannot feel it more strongly. It's a lot of what we all need right now.
it is.
It
Yeah.
is.
And there's room for
Definitely.
everyone. There's no need for
Yes.
competition. There is literally
I'll
room.
come on, I'll hug you.
I know. There's yeah. So, once I think it's a mindset shift and it's a perspective type thing. And I know we've kind of mentioned that, throughout this entire session, but you have to change your mind on how you think about things, the way that you look at it. Put yourself in other women's shoes. We don't always
Mhm.
know what we're all going through. We come to work and we show up as our best selves, but you never know what is going on personally. So be kind. Like, there's just no reason for all of that.
Yeah.
Super girl women power, and this podcast is literally a platform for that. We didn't leave the fellas out. They can learn something too. But for the most part, it's for the women. So yeah, so with that being stated, can you all state something that you would like to leave with the listeners? Something that maybe you wish you knew, something that may give a pat on the back or a high five to someone who is listening right now. I'm gonna start with
Who's
you.
going first?
I can go.
Okay.
I would say stay true. Like Melissa's heard me say this time and time again, but I would say stay true to who you are, your beliefs, your integrity, whatever that is that means to you. And then I would say, similar to how I've been with Melissa, the FARC babes,
Mhm,
um, is really the crew. Like without them, each one of them,
mhm.
like I don't think I'd be where I am today professionally because they've either given me opportunities, believed in me. And so I think also pass it along, right? We're passing it along now, but then I would say then the next generation. So as, we're all leaders passing it and empowering to the next generation so that
Yeah,
they can then pass it along, the
right.
same concept.
I
That's
think
good.
find your people. And I know that's one of our topics
Mhm.
in a couple episodes. Find your people. That
Right,
makes such a difference. It
right.
made such a difference for me growing in leadership and coming to a new place and not having my people at the beginning was so hard. But the moment I found my people,
Yeah,
it just changed everything.
it
It
did.
changes everything.
It brings a peace that surpasses all understanding
Yes.
when you
Yes.
find your people. And I think for me, it's allow yourself the same grace that you give to others.
Good one.
Boy.
Good one.
So don't be so hard on yourself. I think for
Hmm.
years, I was so hard on myself. Girl, it's
Hmm.
okay. Like, it is okay. So give myself the same grace. Everyone else, give yourself the same grace that you give other people. So
And
I
all
think that
great things to take away. Wow.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. So
So
this
amazing.
is amazing. Again, Joyce, thank you. Melissa,
Thank you.
always a pleasure. I look forward to what our listeners have to say about this episode. So
Yeah,
thanks so much.
definitely. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Joyce.
You're
Thank
welcome. Thanks
you.
for having me.
Of
I'm
course.
a fan. Be watching the future,
The future episodes. Okay.
future episodes.
We appreciate the support. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Sis, let's talk leadership. Have a good night.
Bye.